Heated exchanges at a public meeting on the new event center. Frozen pipes have a city resident irate. And at least 2 dead following a devastating explosion in New York. Good evening and thank you for being with us. Concerns over the cost, the location, and the need for a proposed new event center were all raised at a public meeting last night.
And at times, it was heated. A group called the Concerned Taxpayers of Thunder Bay organized the gathering to discuss a possible plebiscite on the facility in this fall's election. But as Dennis Ward reports, it was clear many in the room don't want an event center, period.
Put up your hand if you think the answer is going to be no. Okay, that's in one room.
It was a packed house for a meeting put on by the Concerned Taxpayers of Thunder Bay. Many in the room say the city can't afford to move ahead with the proposed event center. Others worried about the location and parking. Jeff Caldwell shares all of those concerns.
At the beginning, it was $50 to $60 million for the facility. That's escalated to in excess of $106 million. That's a large jump. That's too expensive. I don't think that's something we can afford. And I think the people need to decide the location.
You guys don't want to listen to me. I came to this meeting. Vote on any big ticket items right there.
Those who attended were emotional about this issue, their taxes, and the overall state of the city. Mayor Keith Hobbs was taking the brunt of the criticism on a lot of topics. He feels there was a lot of fear-mongering in the room and believes you could fill a room with supporters of the project just as easy.
You know what? I was in a crowd like this when I was running for mayor, asking for a plebiscite on this issue. And I admit that readily, but when I got into the project and learned of the intricacies and what needs to be done, I've changed my opinion.
Hobbs contends this coming fall isn't the time to have a plebiscite when all the questions are not yet answered, although he says it will be up to the next council if they want to have a standalone question on the project. But Ray Smith, who pulled this meeting together, say polls conducted by the local media, while not scientific, have been clear. People want a plebiscite, and if an event center were to go ahead, it should be located at Inova Park.
The bottom line is the people want to vote, and this is very divisive. This is not a good way they're doing this. They're making people, friends, fight against each other, areas of the city fighting against each other. This is a very poor way to go about building anything.
Based on the turnout here, organizer Ray Smith says another meeting will be held, this time at the Da Vinci Center on April 1st. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
You never realize just how important water really is until you don't have it. Those are words being spoken by one of the latest victims of frozen water pipes in Thunder Bay. It could be another week before he and his family have running water again. And as Mike Albanese reports, the city says this winter has been one of the worst on record for waterline problems.
Winter is tough enough to deal with, but try dealing with it without water. Mike Donio and his young family have been without water for 6 days, and he's not alone. Donio made the call to get his pipes thawed on day 1 and has been on the waiting list since. Now on day 6 of his woes, he's still behind 60 other residences.
Within half an hour, my pipes, of me noticing, I contacted them and they said, oh, it could be up to a few days. It won't be tonight, maybe tomorrow. And then a day later, the environmental services fellow showed up, said you could wait up to a week, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, but up to a week, no more than that. And then today when I called, they told me it's an additional week to wait.
Donio has 2 young children around the house he and his wife need to look after. And with no water, they can't do dishes, laundry, or even work on personal hygiene. Things he never thought he would be worried about in 2014.
You don't realize how much you take everything for granted, having your water just accessible to you. Without the water, like for the young children to go to the bathroom, I have to drive to like convenience store, Tim Hortons, McDonald's, just for them to use the facilities. Like it's so tough not having any water at all or anything accessible.
Unfortunately for Donio and many others, the end isn't near. Over 600 calls have been received by the city about frozen pipes in and around homes. And the city has also dealt with over 50 water main breaks. Whenever a main breaks, it takes precedence over an individual home, and there just isn't enough equipment around to deal with all of it.
We have, we've solicited other plumbing companies and other municipalities to try and get some equipment, some other equipment if possible, and we have been unsuccessful. It's something that is happening across Ontario. This isn't just a Thunder Bay issue, and unfortunately, like us, we would be very, very reluctant to release any of our equipment.
City workers have been working long hours trying to keep up with their ever-growing problem that will actually worsen when the ground thaws. And even if the city were to get more equipment, not just anyone can hop on.
What we have been doing is we've been using all certified operators because it is work that is being done on our distribution system. Each and every one of these guys, highly trained, highly skilled, especially with the thawing equipment. Absolutely cannot use people that have not been properly trained. And our folks that are on these pieces of equipment are experts at it.
City officials say they are doing everything they can to keep up with this tough winter. They are offering free water cards to people so they can fill up at water stations. And city pools are offering their washroom and shower facilities to those affected. Mike Albanese, TBT News.
Well, the shift in temperatures in the city have led to more problems for city crews. This time, it's a frozen storm sewer on Memorial Avenue. The storm sewer, which collects runoff water on the streets, completely froze overnight. Work crews had to shut down one lane of the busy street while fixing the problem. The supervisor of Sewer and Water North, Gerald Ludy, says it was caused by the recent freeze and thaw cycle we've had this week.
The last couple of days being warm, the water has been melting coming into the storm sewer, and then at night it would freeze because of the frost depth wrapped around the storm sewer, causing it to freeze and cause a blockage in the storm sewer itself of ice, causing again to the water to come up out of the catch basins.
Ludy adds city crew workers have been applying steam to the storm sewer to break up the ice and allow water to flow.
A pair of public meetings have been scheduled for next week to look at options for the cleanup of a highly contaminated section of the Thunder Bay Harbor. The sessions will detail the extent of mercury contamination in a roughly 55-acre area near the mouth of the Current River and the shipyards and close to the former Cascades paper mill. The contaminated area is said to contain a thick layer of fibrous pulpy material that's suspended in the water. In total, it's believed to contain about 350,000 cubic meters of contaminated material. Officials from Coal Engineering will be on hand to explain the options for the cleanup. The first meeting will be hosted by the Remedial Action Plan Committee next Wednesday evening at Lakehead University's Ryan Building. A second meeting, hosted by Eco Superior, is scheduled for next Thursday afternoon from 4 until 8 at the Prince Arthur Hotel.
Thunder Bay Police have sent officers to the nation's capital as part of a sexual assault investigation involving the University of Ottawa's hockey team. The university announced the suspension of the team earlier this month after information came forward about an alleged incident here on February 1st. The Ottawa GGs had played that night against the LU Thunderwolves at Fort William Gardens. The original complaint was lodged 3 weeks later by a third party. City Police spokesperson Chris Adams says since then, their officers have been able to establish contact with the female victim in the case, along with some follow-up conversations. Today, investigators with City Police and the Thunder Bay RCMP traveled to Ottawa to conduct further interviews.
Phase where we felt it was necessary to send investigators from the Thunder Bay Police Service, along with some assistance from the RCMP, to Ottawa. And once they're on the ground there today, they'll be working with the Ottawa Police Service to conduct a number of very important interviews with members of the organization attached to the hockey team. We're able, I should say, to reach out to the victim, an adult female, and have been following up since then with the assistance of the Ottawa Police Service.
Adams adds that their officers have jurisdiction to lay charges anywhere in Ontario. The case made national headlines, and Adams acknowledges there has been a lot of interest in it, but says their focus is always on the victim and seeking the truth into what happened.
The last 100 Canadian troops will be back on home soil from Afghanistan soon. The Canadian Forces finished up a 3-year training mission today by lowering Canada's flag at the NATO headquarters in Kabul. Thunder Bay resident Jeff Abthorpe completed a 7-month tour in Afghanistan himself as a combat team commander. He says the Canadian government completed the goals it set out to achieve by transitioning out of combat into training missions for the past 3 years and committing to get our troops home this year. He says we have lived up to our reputation as Canadians.
Well, I think it's a wonderful benchmark for bringing closure to 12 years of operations in Afghanistan. Since 2001, with Colonel Strogan's battle group that deployed in support of the American operations there, right through to all the missions that we've had, whether they be the combat missions or the capacity building missions where we've been training the Afghan soldiers how to provide security to their own country. I think we needed this closure. The ceremony marked overseas was fairly low key, but it does mark an end to a wonderful contribution for Canada.
Abthorpe says, while this day does offer closure for many soldiers, a lot of them still have physical and mental rehabilitation to go through before they can put Afghanistan behind them. We will have more on the Canadian pullout a little later on in the news hour.
Many locals of Ukrainian descent and some non-Ukrainians are showing their support for the country in turmoil by flying the Ukrainian flag here in Thunder Bay. You may have noticed the blue and yellow flags hanging from the windows of vehicles around the city. The Ukrainian Credit Union on South High Street purchased 100 flags to show support and raise money for Ukrainian organizations. And the branch manager says it was a spontaneous idea, and in a matter of weeks, all of the flags had been purchased.
Right after the deadly clashes at the end of February on Independence Maidan in Ukraine, when many people died, and we were talking to our friends in different cities in Canada, and they were sharing information how Ukrainians in those cities support Ukraine, and they were saying that Ukrainian car flags are a very successful campaign.
She adds it's difficult and emotional for her to watch what's happening back home in Ukraine. So far, the bank has no plans to bring in more of the flags, but donations are still being accepted.
Area pulp mills could see significant economic and operational gains if new technology being tested proves to be successful, and some of those tests will take place at the mill in Terrace Bay. The Thunder Bay-based Centre for Research and Innovation in the Bioeconomy, or CRIBE, is helping to fund the project. CRIBE is providing $1.3 million to Chatham-based Greenfield Specialty Alcohols for the project. The company will take its patent-pending equipment used to extract and recover clean sugars and apply it in a pulp and paper demonstration. CRIBE CEO Lauren Morrow says AV Terrace Bay is a natural fit for tests because the mill is being converted into a dissolving pulp operation. And he says the tests could create higher value products.
You'll see it used in glues. You'll see it used in alcohols. And there's a lot of interest downstream from bio-based chemistry people who want to take and make their downstream products with something that's bio-based.
The equipment is currently being purchased and is expected to be installed at the mill within the next year.
Confederation College students and graduates got a chance to meet with officials at Lakehead University today and discuss ways to turn their diploma into a degree. Students were finding out about specific admission requirements and talking to professors about certain programs. LU has a number of unique articulation agreements that allow students to transfer credits from college programs into Lakehead degree programs without any stress. Joanna Crisco is the recruitment officer with the university. She says there are a number of reasons why college students decide to make the switch.
I think it's an opportunity for them to continue on with their education. So not only will they have a diploma, they'll also have a bachelor's degree, and that helps them out in the workplace when getting paid and that kind of stuff.
Anyone looking for more information when it comes to transferring credits is encouraged to contact the university.
Meanwhile, the college is also hoping to entice other future students to its campus for the coming school year. It's using the March break to give tours to potential students. The aim is to showcase the hands-on facilities that will give those students the skills they need to stand out in the future. Trevor Hamalainen is a recruitment officer at the college. He spent a few hours today showing the new and prospective students around facilities that they'd be learning in, as well as the rest of the campus. Hamalainen's been giving these tours for a few years now, and he says quite a few of the touring students end up deciding that college is where they want to be.
And the beauty of the college system is hands-on applied learning, and they really get to see that when they tour our shops and kind of see all the mechanical aspects of it, or again from the health facilities or anything in between. It's also a great opportunity for students if they're not too sure what program to take. If they're tied between should I take paramedic or practical nursing, they can really figure out what program to take then to start for fall 2014.
Any students, like high school students and even students from other countries, can decide what kind of area I will choose in the future. So I think it's important, events like that, for show us what type of job I want to do in the future, I want to work in the future.
Hamalainen says many of those on the tours are from Ontario, but as Eduardo proves, they're also drawing international interest. Over 80 tour requests have been submitted, and those will be held over the next couple of days.
Some kids went on trips for March break, but one group of local youngsters are making music instead. The George Jeffrey Children's Center brought in some special guests to help the kids embrace their inner spirit. Derek Connie spent his morning teaching children with physical and developmental disabilities how to use the drums for creative artistic exploration. Kim Scholand is the head of recreation and leisure at the George Jeffrey Center. She says the program is great because some of the kids feel they don't fit in other places. So this brings a fun and safe surrounding to learn and grow.
So individual that the children do what's inside them, and whether it's making music or creating visual art, which they did yesterday, they're able to learn about themselves and learn about what they can do without any right or wrong.
Students are in a different setting and they are engaged in a different curriculum, which is not necessarily academic, but has a lot to do with personal growth and development, you know, as a human being, and therefore they can become better citizens.
The afternoon also held some fun for the kids as they got to experience a circus school for the very first time.